Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm the Managing Director of NTT Fundraising. And over the last few weeks, we at NTT have been producing a series of videos digging into our experience of the last 30 odd years in data-driven marketing to give some tips and advice to people who are looking to get involved for perhaps the first time. Now, this video was tip number 5. Never buy the data up front before you start a campaign. In fact, that tip should have been never buy the data up front before you start a campaign. Now, in video number 1, we talked about creating success criteria, and we talked about driving out the touch points in a campaign. In video number 2, we talked about aligning those with the contractual framework so that your suppliers are engaged and understand what it is you need from them for your campaign to be successful. In video number 3, we went through how you should be measuring and reporting in as real time as possible on as many of the KPIs that influence your campaign as you can. And in video number 4, we spoke about how we should be engaging with our suppliers in a more partnership basis rather than as a specific commodity provider. All of those tips and tricks go out of the window if you source the data for a campaign in a lump before you actually carry out any activity on it. You will not be able to take advantage of any real-time metrics that you see. You will not be able to take advantage of your suppliers' experiences and broad brush knowledge of their industry, and you will be stuck running the campaign as it was on day 1 because you've already sourced the key resource for that campaign. There is other reasons to be wary about doing this, and that is obviously the commercial risk of you buying a lot of data that turns out that it actually doesn't perform even close to what the sales guy perhaps told you it would, in which case you are ultimately left with data that might even cost more to use than you actually spent on it. And following on from that, data that does not perform very well and data that's kind of appeared in a lump like that tends to be the sort of data that causes regulatory concerns. Now, if it isn't freshly generated leads, if it has been sort of sat somewhere in a file for a while, there is a serious risk in doing that you are actually going to find yourself with data that will not give you a decent ROI and will have a high level of regulatory risk in it. So the advice is very much look at a just-in-time ordering type environment where your lead generation activity is as fresh and as close to the actual engagement activity as you can get it within the sort of bounds of the practical campaign. So that's it really. That tip is probably as important as the first tip in the campaign. But overall, if you ensure that you are buying data from credible suppliers who you have visibility over their processes, who are happily gaining feedback from you as to how their stuff is performing in your parts of the campaign, and you're not buying the data in a lump at the beginning, then you will have a significantly better data-driven marketing campaign than if you don't. There's an awful lot of resources about data-driven marketing on the DMA's website. And if you want to speak to us at NTT, we're always happy to speak to people about their data-driven marketing. And if you're someone in the industry who feels that I've left something out of my top tips, or perhaps you want to challenge me on any of them, then feel free to tap me up, and we'd be happy to give you an opportunity sat in the hot seat yourself.